One thing you want to think about with children, especially young children, this is really important. You got to get this right. When you have a baby, say, you can't believe it. And you can't believe that you're going to be able to figure out what to do with this thing. It's the most complicated thing you've ever had, and no one has helped you figure out how to do it. So you're stuck. And then like 3 months later, it's like you can't really imagine what life would be like without that baby. And then it's sort of like, this goes on forever. That's how it feels, but it doesn't.
Right.
You have little kids for 4 years. And if you miss it, it's done. That's it. So you got to know that. It's, you know, lots of things in life you don't get to do more than once. Now, obviously you can have more than one child, but all I'm saying is that period between 0 and 4, 0 and 5, there's something about it that's really, it's like a peak experience in life. And it isn't much of your life. You know, because you think of it as a long time. It's not that long, man. 4 years goes by so fast you can't believe it. And if you miss it, it's gone. So you miss it at your peril and you don't get it back. And that's not, I know it, with your career, you miss opportunities, you fall behind. This happens to women a lot. It's part of the reason for the pay gap. And it's really hard on women, you know, although no one knows what to do about it. So, and I would also say, well, you talk to each other, try to minimize your financial requirements to the degree that you can. See if there's other ways that you can generate income. And come to a consensual solution and try not to torture yourself with guilt, with whatever you come up with. But do remember, because you know, you've got financial responsibilities and often you need 2 incomes and there's no easy way of dealing with it. And for women, it often seems that no matter what they do, it's wrong, right? They stay home with the kids, it's wrong. If they go to work, it's wrong. If they do both, it's wrong. And I'm not being smart about that. That's rough, man. But having said all that, I would say again, you got little kids for 4 years. Don't miss it. You will regret it. First of all, I think that like human beings are social eaters. And it's a species characteristic. That's really weird. Social eating is really weird. Animals don't share food. Like mother birds will feed their chicks, you know.
Right.
But animals, as a rule, don't share food. Like if you're in a wolf pack and you bring down a moose, it's like the most dominant wolves eat their fill, and then, you know, the less dominant wolves get to go in there and pick up the scraps. Human beings aren't like that. Like we have this, people who are alone don't eat well, generally speaking. They're not even hungry. We have this unbelievably deep need to eat communally. And it's a huge part of socialization because, well, you got to think that the regulation of eating is, in some sense, the only thing that could compare with that would be the regulation of anger and the regulation of sex. It's fundamental to culture.
Yeah.
Sit like a civilized human being, share the food properly, be good company, pay attention, learn to converse, be grateful for what you have to eat. Those are basic, they're not even rules, they're deeper than rules, they're patterns of behavior. And you need that. So not having that shared meal, that's a real catastrophe. I think 1/3 of British families now don't even have a dining room table. Yeah. It's really not good. Hey, mom does everything for me. It's like, oh really? You know, that's not so good because that means you can't do anything for yourself. You know, and so there's a rule for working with old people in old age homes, and the rule is don't do anything for the residents that they can do themselves. You think, well, that's pretty harsh. It's like, no, it isn't. You're helping them retain their independence and their strength, right?
Yeah.
So you're not stealing their strength. And it's the same with little kids. Like, little kids should be doing whatever they can that's productive and useful as young as they can. Like, if you have a 2-year-old who's just toddling around, you know, you can get that 2-year-old to set the table. We used to have our kids do that. It's really funny to watch because the table's like a foot and a half above their heads. You know?
Right.
So, you know, you give the 2-year-old a knife, not a sharp one, obviously.
That's a different psychological game. You can save that for next time, Peterson.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you say, okay, go put this on the table. No, they can't exactly put it beside the plate because they can't see the damn plate.
Right.
But the kids are actually, if you're careful with them and you adjust your expectations to their level of developing expertise, that's called the zone of proximal development, by the way, they're more than happy to comply because it helps them develop and move forward, and they have a really powerful instinct for that. You know, and with kids, it's also interesting if you watch them very carefully, you can see when they're ready for the next task, you know. And then also the kids, you know, people talk a lot about self-esteem, which is it's very badly conceptualized self-esteem, because it's come to mean you should feel good about yourself, which I don't believe. I think you should feel good about who you could be if you got your act together. And you shouldn't be feeling so good about who you are now in your sorry state. It's like, what the hell, man? You're 17. Don't be feeling too good about yourself. Get your act together and see what you could be, and feel good about your trajectory.
Yeah.
That's way different, but also your competence. And so, like, even with little kids, is they know they're being taken care of. They have an existential debt to their parents. It's like if you allow them to be useful and encourage them to do things, then they get to pay off that existential debt, and then they can see that they're contributing members of even this small society. And it's no lie. It's like, hey, you know, when my son was born, my daughter was about a year and a half old, and you can get pretty intense sibling rivalry with kids aren't separated by 3 years. Doesn't mean you should separate them by 3 years, but because the older kid is still pretty dependent, so you got to watch that. So the first thing we did was we talked to her about the new baby that was coming, and we told her that that was going to be her baby, you know, as well as our baby. That's your baby. And then we taught her to get a hug, and we had her act that out. It's like, okay, when the new baby comes, there's going to be times when your mom is preoccupied. You got to say it in a way a 3-year-old or 1.5-year-old, something like that, it was 1.5, can understand, and that means acting it out and playing, right, like pretend play. But the message was, there'll be times when you're going to feel lonesome, and you have to come and get a hug. Well, so then we'd have her practice. It's like, let's play a game. Pretend you're lonesome. It's like, okay, now come and get a hug. Well, and so, okay, so fine. Then we had our son, and we helped Michaela, my daughter, figure out how to take care of him. And, you know, a 1.5-year-old can actually take care of a baby. They can watch the baby, and if the baby cries, they can come and tug on you, you know, and say the baby needs, you know, whatever the baby needs. And so then, well, then the older child also gets a set of privileges because of that. It's like, well, you're older, you don't get to be an infant anymore. That's kind of sucks because mom's with you all the time. It's like, what do you get in exchange? You get some more freedom, you get some more status, you get some more power. It's like, it's a good trade-off. That's why you want to grow. That's why you want to become an adult. You don't want to steal that from people. You steal that's the witch in Hansel and Gretel who fattens up the kids and eats them. It's like, come here to my lair, little one. You know, it's gingerbread and candy.
Yeah.
You won't have to do anything. I'll take care of you. It's like, yeah, run away from that person.